The Democratic Republic of the Congo has a long tradition in which the United Kingdom is the most democratic nation on earth, but it has never had the slightest chance of being the most democratic country on the continent ever created, and is a member of a group of countries which are not in any country.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Autofill Alphabet of Nations Part 2. We did the cold open this time to introduce our new theme song. That was our theme song. We hope you enjoyed it. Anyways, let's get back to the action. Denmark has been the world champion in terms of speed for years, but it's not a good time for the world champion because he has a very strong heart for his teammates, and he will always win the league in every aspect.
Every aspect of Djibouti has its roots in this country, which has a very different meaning than any of other nations, which have been around since ancient time, but have a different history, which has a very distinct meaning of it as a different place.
A different place in Dominica, where the government has been in the dark for decades. It's a different story than the rest of Europe, where the government is in a dark corner, and it's a very bad place for the government in general, because the government has no power over them, so it's a very dangerous thing for the people of Ukraine, and they don't have any right.
Yeah. Stop! Any right to the Dominican Republic should not have been given the chance of a free and democratic vote for a man of integrity who has no right or moral character whatsoever, and who has a right and moral character that should have the same moral and ethical responsibility for his own country, as he has been elected by his wife or husband or daughter and wife or husband to be a member or husband of a president.
A president of Ecuador has said the United Nations should take action against Iran for what he views as the most extreme form of military action in Iraq since World War II, and the Soviet Union has taken steps against it since it invaded Ukraine, and the Soviet army has taken the initiative of a war against Russia in the name of the United Kingdom, and its allies are not welcome in Europe.
In Europe, Egypt is not only the only place in Europe where you have access to your phone or tablet, but the entire world has access to your data and the information that is provided by your mobile device. And the information is stored on your computer or tablet, and stored there for your personal data stored on the phone.
The phone in El Salvador is not working properly at the moment, so we need to update our system to ensure the phone is working perfectly properly at home and not having any problems with the app crashing on our phones, or anything else that could happen with it. And it is a bit frustrating for the customer service department to get back to you as soon, as they are very frustrated with it. It is a problem.
Yeah. A problem in Equatorial Guinea has been that many people have not had enough money for their children and their parents and grandparents, and their parents are still struggling financially due tomorrow morning. So they can't get any money for school or anything like this morning because they are struggling financially.
Financially, Eritrea is the only country that has ever made a single dollar from its economy, and the rest of Europe has been in a recession since the pandemic started in January and March of last decade. So it has to pay off in terms of taxes, to pay off debt and inflation, and unemployment is the biggest issue for a long time to come out of the economy.
The economy in Estonia has a lot of potential for economic recovery in terms from a global recession, but it has a very high rate of unemployment, which means it has been very slow in recent months due to inflation in Europe, which has not recovered from the recession in recent months. So the government is still very weak in terms from last week.
Last week in Eswatini, we saw a man with a red beard and a white beard, who looked like he could walk around in the woods with his white beard on the ground in front of his car, with his black beard on top, and a red beard with the white shirt on his shoulder and his black tie on the ground, and a red tie with his white hair and black pants, and his red tie on the back of his neck.
Oh! Ethiopia's neck of Europe has become so tight it will not even have any chance to reach its full potential of being able to survive without a single human body being in the hands of a human body in 1,000,000 miles of the planet. at any time in history or any time soon, as we know that we have a planet in our lifetime that we can survive without.
Without Fiji, the world would not have a single person to blame for the crisis in Europe, or any other situation in Europe, or anywhere else, except Russia, or the Middle North Sea, or North America, or South Korea, or whatever else is happening in Europe, or whatever else is coming out of the Middle North that would have to happen to stop the crisis in Europe, or the Middle East, or North Africa, or whatever the world thinks.
You know, Middle North.
The Middle North Sea.
The world thinks Finland has the best food and water supply, but it doesn't know what to eat for dinner or lunch or whatever, so we have no choice but to go home to eat or drink or something. And then we will be home to go home to sleep in a few days, so we will have some food for the kids.
The kids in France have been doing the most in the past couple of weeks, with their parents being in school, so it's hard to see what they can get done for the kids, and I don't know what they're doing for them, but I don't think it's going anywhere. In this world that they're doing anything about this country, it's not just about their parents. It's just the way things going, it's the way things go, it's just a lot.
It's just a lot for Gabon, and it's a bit more expensive to buy a new car than it was to get a new car for free, and then buy it back in a year or two after the car was stolen, and it costs a little more than that, so it's a lot cheaper to just pay the difference between buying a new car than buying new cars.
Exactly. Cars in the Gambia have a higher risk of death due to climate change, due to climate deniers like yourself who believe in climate science as a tool of propaganda against their own interest, rather than a political ideology to justify the destruction of their lives by fossil energy companies like Musk, who has been the reason for all of these deaths in America for decades now. Yeah, fuck you, Elon Musk.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
For decades now, Georgia and his colleagues have been working to develop the technology that could help people who have lost their lives to cancer or disease or other illnesses and disease that could affect them more quickly and effectively than their colleagues have been trained and equipped with it all year round in a way they have been trained.
Trained in Germany, I think you should go back to school to get some experience with the game of chess in general, because you don't know how to play chess properly, and you don't even understand the rules of chess. In particular, you don't understand how to learn how much money you spend on chess. In general, you know what you're talking to the people who don't understand how the rules of tennis is different from the rules of football in the world, and how much you play chess.
Yeah, of course. Chess in Ghana has become an obsession with people with no knowledge about chess or chess history or anything like it in general, or anything else in particular that I have never seen before, but it seems like it has become an addiction for people with knowledge about chess history or something that is very much like chess history, or chess and chess history, or something that has a very long history.
Yeah, Greek history has always been a joke to me, because it has never happened before. But it is true that the people of this country were never in danger of losing the election because of their own political affiliation with their own country, because they are in danger of being killed by a corrupt regime in order to be elected president of this country, in order for them not being elected to power in a democracy in which we all live in the first round of the presidential contest, in which we will see the results of the election.
Yeah, of course.
Oh.
The election in Grenada, the most... Grenada? Oops.
I think it's Grenada. I don't actually
Grenada?
know. I've
The
never
election
been there.
in Grenada, the most common type, is a single cell with an external nucleus or an internal protein called the protein matrix, which contains all three elements of amino chain proteins that form a nucleus of proteins called amino chain proteins and amino acid proteins, which of these proteins are the proteins in this protein chain proteins that have been used for many different proteins.
This has been biology with the Dong Squad. Coming up next, since it capitalized every word of the sentence, proteins in Guatemala are not just proteins, but they are also a protein molecule that makes proteins more complex than other foods, but proteins, and they can be made into other proteins. And they are also called proteins, which make proteins, and they have more proteins than common sense and are not made for much of all of the same stuff.
It's literally in all caps.
All caps. I don't know why it did that.
The same stuff in Guinea that was used in the first round was used for this game in Europe, in which they used the same tactics in both games as the first two games of this tournament, in which the players had a different tactic, and they had different strategies that they had similar strategies, that they were able and then played different tactics in different situations.
Yeah, situations in Guinea-Bissau are very difficult for the young men to navigate in a hurry because of their lack of knowledge of their surroundings, or the environment they live on, or in the city, or a city of Guinea, or any of their families in general, or the countries that have a very poor population in their home country, that they are very poor in their homes, or even in the countryside, or even in their own country, because of the way the population is growing, and they are very poor.
Yeah. Very poor Guyana and I have to agree that it would not work if you didn't use a single metric for your average American coffee, and you didn't even know what your coffee is made from, so I guess you're right that the coffee is not a metric to compare it to other countries that have different beans in their coffee shops that are not the standard coffee shop that has the best quality of coffee.
I know, right? I mean, like, Haitian coffee is the best coffee I've ever made in the past few years because it's so good, and I love the flavor and the texture and the taste that comes from the coffee itself. And it's just a good blend that makes me happy and makes me smile every time I'm drinking coffee, and my coffee is amazing coffee, and it's just a little more satisfying than coffee, but it's just so satisfying. I love coffee.
Coffee, oh no.
Say it.
Coffee in the Holy See, aka the Vatican, was not the only one who was surprised to hear the story about a woman in her early teens who died from breast milk poisoning after she died of breast implant complications from the vaccine in the late 90s, when her mother was pregnant with a woman in a nursing school in New Hampshire in New York, told her mother that her father was pregnant with breast cancer in the early 90s.
I hate it when I'm pregnant with breast cancer.
Damn breast implant complications.
In the early 90s in Honduras, the government had a large collection of books on how the world was made by a woman who lived in a village in a rural town called Brighton in the early days of the Great Depression that had become the capital city of England, and a decade earlier than any of its inhabitants were known to have ever known or understood about their history and culture and history in their native land, in their native country of the United Nations, or their home country of the land, or their land.
Their land of Hungary and their country of choice, and the land they have to be able afford it to be built in a country where it will not have a problem to be able and have the same amount to pay the price of living in the future of their country as the world has become more prosperous than they have been since they are now living there and the people are living there.
Yeah, so that was D to H in the alphabet of nations. We hope you really enjoyed that.
We did.
We really enjoyed that, especially the breast implant complications.
There are some good ones in here.
I think it's time to play our closing credits, which is a little something like...
Please no.